Hi, and welcome to this 30-minute yoga practice. I'm Andrea. Thanks for joining me. I do want you to have a chair for this practice because we're going to do some specific stuff with it. So grab a chair. I am standing on a yoga mat, but if you don't have one, it's fine. If you've got a carpeted area, someplace that's not too slippery, that's going to work just great. Also, a couple of blocks, maybe 2 heavy books will work. And a folded blanket or even a big beach towel, all of these things will make your practice all the better, all the more enjoyable. And then we'll start in Tadasana in our mountain pose with our feet hip distance. And I think if you situate your mat with the short edge facing me, you'll be best able to see me. So when we stand in our Tadasana, it's really where we stand in our power. It's where we stop so that we can start. Feel your feet in the earth and the crown of your head extending towards the sky. Turn your palms away from each other, but let that happen at your shoulder. Smiling your heart open, your collarbones smile. Maybe even you smile a little, because here we are getting to practice yoga together. Take this moment to bring a little awareness to your breath. Just see if you can breathe in and out through your nose. The idea is that you breathe in and out through your nose from now until the end of our practice, but please breathe with some awareness. If that means through your mouth, sometimes it's fine. It's not wrong. Now I'm going to be quiet so that we can land. You're even welcome to close your eyes to really bring the attention inward. And then keep the attention inward as you gently blink your eyes open. Attention is so valuable that everyone is trying to steal our attention. Everything is trying to steal our attention. Let's see if we can really honor our attention today. Inhale, arms out and up in a V shape. And then exhale with particular attention. Float the arms alongside you. 2 more times like that. Inhale. And exhale. 1 more time. Inhale. And exhale, we'll add on. Inhale, arms out and up. Exhale, hinge at your hips and take your hands to your thighs. Inhale your heart forward. Let's pause and pay attention to the length in our spine and the smile in our collarbones. And then as you exhale and increase the hinge at the hip, you make sure that your head doesn't get lower than your hips. And then arms out and up in a V shape. Stand in your mountain. 1 more time like that. Inhale, arms out and up, a V shape overhead. Exhale, hinge at your hips and take your hands to your thighs. Inhale, lengthen like traction with your hands on your thighs a bit, and then exhale, a little bit more hinge at the hips. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, and then float the arms along your side. Paying attention, lean your weight to your right foot. And then lean your weight over to your left foot so things get a little light on the right foot. Go back and forth. If your tempo is a bit different than mine, that's fine. But pay close attention to what's required to stay balanced when we're leaning to one side. So as you lean over here onto your right foot, hug the outer right hip in so we don't let things collapse and give way. There is a call to action, which is our mental attention, but our muscular attention too. Now the next time that you shift onto your right foot, let's stay there for a moment. Call to action of the right hip hugging in. You can even float the left foot off the ground. And this is where you might use the chair for the first time underneath your hand, like the back of the chair could be great. And then come through center through our mountain pose and stand onto your left foot and just let that right foot hover. Hug the left hip in. So just think call to action. focusing our mind and our muscles. 2 more moments. And then stand into your mountain and appreciate that here in our mountain, the balance is even, or as even as possible. Now step out and face the long edge of your mat, and here are the props that you will want for our next thing. Either your 2 blocks, tall at the back edge of your mat, so not on the mat where you're going to trip on them, but also not so far out of reach that you can't get to them. If you know that for triangle pose, you would like to use the base of your chair, just move your chair so that it is behind you and you can have access to the base of your chair for your hand. Before we start that, facing the long edge of your mat with your feet hip distance, I'm going to face you, so I'm going to kind of cheat what I'm asking you to do, but I want to be able to face you. So standing in Tadasana, but facing the long edge of your mat, or imagining that you have the long edge of a mat. Bring your hands onto your hips, and then shift your weight onto your left foot, and let your right leg lift up, and then from your hip, turn that leg out like we're dancing a jig, and now we have to really hug that left hip in. Turn the toes to face the sky. Stand in your mountain. You can just keep your hands on your hips. Shift your weight onto your right foot now. Take your left leg out in front of you and feel that it happens at the hip. You turn your leg out from the hip and you hug that right hip in. Turn your toes to the sky and stand into your mountain and pause. We'll add to that, paying close attention about what it is that we're doing. Hands on your hips. Shift your weight onto your left foot. Let that right foot come off the ground and out in front of you as we've done. Paying close attention, turn it out at the hip, and then create either a little kickstand on the inside for your tree pose, or put that foot on the shin, not on top of the knee, if you don't mind. Hug the outer left hip in. You're welcome to use your chair for this too. So if you need to resituate and have your hand on the back of the chair, great. I could probably use it. There might be 1 or 2 of you who take the foot a little higher into the inner thigh. Outer hip hugs in, that's the big deal. While we're here, hand can be on the base of the chair, or widen your branches as we deepen our roots for balance. Maybe even your V shape overhead for a moment, but you want to be careful that you're not collapsing that hip out, nor are we shrugging shoulders into our ears. Return your hands to your hips if they're not there. Feel free to use your hand on your chair. Turn your right knee forward, stand into your mountain. We're growing a tree from our mountain, aren't we? Hands on your hips. Maybe hand to the back of the chair. Shift your weight onto your right foot. Take your left leg out in front of you, and at the hip joint, turn that leg out. Hug the outer right hip in so we don't get like too jiggy with it, right? And then from here, a kickstand for probably most of us. Keep that outer hip working, paying close attention. This hip is turning out, this hip is hugging in. You can bring your left foot into the shin. There might be 1 or 2 of you who take that left foot into the right inner thigh. Hand or hands can be on the back of your chair. Thumbs to the sky with your arms out to the side. V shape if for some reason widening your branches like that makes sense. Can you hug the trunk of your tree in, so that outer right hip in? 2 moments here. Perhaps bring your hands back to the back of your chair, hands on your hips, or maybe 1 of them. Left knee forward, feet hip distance. We return to our mountain. Both our mountain and our tree are going to help us with the next poses. This is the part where I'm going to move my mat, but you don't need to move yours. I just want to make sure that you can see me best. So I'll turn my mat a little bit more sideways, and all of us will step out wide on our mat. Measure your ankles underneath your wrists or thereabout. Bring your hands onto your hips. Remember, those of you who want to use your chair base for your tree pose or for your triangle pose, just have that behind you midway down your mat. Turn your right leg out like we did when we were dancing our jig a moment ago. So your right foot is facing the short edge of your mat. And then cheat your left heel back at a 45-degree angle, thumbs to the sky with your arms out. Bend your right knee and just measure, make sure that your knee is not further forward than your ankle. So I often need a little wider stance here. Warrior two. Right hip is hugging underneath you, like when we were dancing a jig and like our tree pose. If you think about it, it kind of looks like our tree pose, doesn't it? Now see if you can stand tall. Feel the outer edge of your back foot into your mat and your left thigh bone pressing into the hamstring. So we're not letting that back leg get a little collapsed. We want to have some strength back there, like standing in our mountain. Now just for a moment, straighten your front leg and take a V shape overhead and let that inspire you to lift your low belly. So we're paying close attention to the architecture of our pose. Head back in, bend the front knee, thumbs to the sky. Keep hugging that right hip underneath you, so we're not swinging our butt out. We're hugging that hip underneath. And now like a karate chop, right form across the right thigh, left thumb up to the sky. We're still swinging that right hip underneath us. And another thing to be careful of is that there isn't a collapse of the shoulder and the ear. So keep that karate chop happening. And then from here, maybe left arm a little higher to the sky. It's still a V shape. We don't want that shoulder in our ear either. Can you still lift your low belly while we're here? And I'm going to be quiet for just a few moments so that you can pay close attention to your pose and not so much me. You breathing? And then slowly upright into our warrior two, thumbs to the sky. Slow motion, straighten that front leg and lower your arms to give them a break for a moment. Now, even though the front leg is straight, we're not locked out. So you want to have like a little bit of a micro bend there. Press your right big toe mound into your mat. This is where a block on the outside of that right foot or the base of your chair behind you is going to come in handy. Thumbs to the sky. We don't want side flexion. We want to get sassy. So left hip out, a hinge at the hip. Reach out long and then find your block underneath your hand or the base of your chair underneath your hand. Left thumb to the sky. We take a few moments to pay attention to things like our right hamstring here in this pose. Remember that we don't really want more than a V shape of that top arm overhead. So keep the thumb to the sky. Spin the inner upper arms away from each other. Fill this shape with breath. Now slow motion with your belly firm and a little bend in your front knee. Come upright. You can move the block off of your mat so it's not going to be in the way on the second side. Turn all toes to face the long edge of your mat and then we'll take the second side. Left leg turns out just like when we danced our jig. Back heel cheats back. We're pretty well measured. Thumbs to the sky, arms out to the side. Bend your front knees, so now your left knee bends. If you need more space, if it did change shape, then feel free to fix it any way you'd like. Not because it's broken, but just because you're welcome to not be a statue and let these things be a little bit more fluid. It's all ongoing. We are all works in progress. Let your left hip tuck underneath you. Stay for a moment noticing that this is a lot like our tree, especially as you keep feeling the left thigh bone move to the left hip tucking underneath you. We'll take a little bit of a break with the arms overhead in a V shape, straightening that front leg just for a beat. Grow as tall as you can and take this height with you, paying close attention as we bend the front knee to head back into our warrior pose. Now take your left forearm across your left thigh. Right thumb up to the sky. There's a karate chop with that forearm so we don't scrunch and we're not letting that hip swing out. So hug the left hip, karate chop, and grow some space between your shoulders and your ears. Right thumb to the sky. It doesn't go any higher than a V shape, so we make sure there's no pinch in the neck on that side. And then really feel your right thigh bone press into the hamstring. And stay with it here for a few cycles of breath where I'm quiet and you get to experience your pose. Really nice. Firm through your belly. Come upright, arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky. And then slowly straighten your front leg. Let your arms release down so that they get a break. If you want to shorten your stance or make it easier to get to your chair, that's great. Thumbs to the sky. Remember, we're not bending at the waist. We're sticking our right hip out, lengthening long with a hip hinge. And then left hand onto your block or the base of your chair. Right thumb to the sky. Imagine that you're spinning your inner upper arms away from one another so that there's space between the shoulders and your ears. And then also press into your left big toe mound so that you feel an activation of your feet. It's that paying close attention from the ground up. Take a few moments here. Firm through your feet and your belly. Slow motion with a little bend in your front knee. Come upright. Carefully turn all of your toes to face the long edge of your mat. And then just paying close attention, heel toe, till your hip distance. And we're back in our mountain. We'll move mountains to the front edge of our mat. And you can move the props. Always a very important part of paying close attention is to move our props so that we don't trip on them. As I often say, that's probably instruction more for me than for you. And this is where we're going to use the base of the chair. So make sure that if you've moved it for your triangle, that you place it here at the front edge of your mat, and then shift your weight onto your left foot and place your right foot on the base of your chair. Now remember when we were doing tree pose and our other balancing poses, we felt the outer hip hug in. You can think that on both sides. V shape overhead. Start to turn to your right. Now already you can feel that things get a little bit wobbly. That means that we have to pay close attention. And this is plenty. This is enough, just like this. If you want to, and it will require so much attention, some of us might decide to take that right foot off the base of the chair a little bit, or just make it a little bit lighter as we turn. It might be that arms out to the side works better for you than that V shape. Pay attention to what you need. 3 moments here. The dismount requires as much attention as the actual pose. So pay attention as you start to turn forward. Bring your hands to your hips, firm through your belly. Step your right foot hip distance from your left foot. Return to your mountain. Stand on your right leg. You can always use the back of your chair also to help to put this left foot onto the base of the chair. Hug your outer right hip in, arms out to the side, either a V shape or feel free to just have them out to the side. Sometimes that helps with the balance. And then begin to turn to your left. Outer right hip is hugging in. Totally optional to ramp up the attention by taking your left foot and making it a little bit lighter. That could be a very short-lived game, And if it's not fun, don't worry about it. It's plenty to have your foot on the chair and be turning and feeling the outer right hip hug in. There's enough. A few moments here. I'll be quiet so that you can pay attention to the sensations and balance. As we come out, pay attention. Unwind. Hands onto your hips. Firm through your feet and your belly. And then maybe using the back of your chair. Left foot hip distance from right foot. We pause in our mountain. We're going to make our way to the floor, and I think that the chair or even your blocks can be very useful for that. Let's take a sun salutation to get there. Inhale, arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky, a V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to the tops of your thighs. Inhale, lengthen to your spine. Hands onto the base of your chair or onto your blocks. Move slowly. Come onto your knees. You can move the chair away if you feel like it's in your way. The next thing that you will want to find is your folded blanket or your folded beach towel. Your books or your blocks nearby might be helpful for a number of us. I like a pretty good bench to sit on, so I fold mine a few times so that I've got a tall seat. And then once you're seated, you can be just facing that long edge of your mat. I'm turning to face you, so I'm not even really using my mat the way the one might. Sit on your folded blanket with your legs out in front of you. What I don't want is for this to start happening in any of our spines. So the pay close attention here is to avoid rounding in our spine. If you have your hands behind you, you can see how that gives you a tall spine. So stay with the tall spine, legs out in front of you. Think back to our tree pose days and start to create a seated tree, right foot into left inner thigh or even the shin. This is where some of us a block underneath that right thigh. So if it hurts your knee at all, this is your friend. V-shape overhead, curl your left toes back towards you, turn like we just did on our chair towards your right leg, and then start to take your fingertips to the ground or even to your blocks. Hinge at the hips, so we're still not rounding. We still have that twist. It doesn't have to go very far. And then find the sweet spot for you and pay close attention to all the different sensations, including the rise and the fall of your breath. Now, the other thing about attention is that sometimes it's hard to sustain paying attention. Your mind wanders off to something that happened earlier or you think might happen later. Come back to the rise and fall of your breath and these sensations and see if you can be 100% here right now. To me, that's the most advanced yoga. Two more moments, really great work. Now, come upright, which is probably not a very far journey. We've been pretty upright. And then help it along. Take your right hand on your right thigh, stamp your right foot onto the ground, extend your right leg out in front of you, switch sides, bend your left knee, the foot goes wherever it goes in the inseam of your right leg. It could be the inner thigh, it's likely to be a little lower, and if it's helpful, block under the left thigh. Curl your right toes towards you, sit up tall, V-shape overhead, turn like we just did with our foot on the chair, and like we just did in this pose, and then frame your left leg, hip hinge, like our sun salutation, and we pause. So this is like a combo platter of a twist that we did, a tree pose that we did, and the understanding of hinging at our hip, elongating through our spine, and really staying in our mountain from the waist up. And then we just see if we can string our attention along for a little bit longer without racing into the past or chasing the future. You're welcome to close your eyes. We're here for a full minute. That was excellent. You did it. Now slowly come upright. Take your left hand to your left thigh. Help it along to extend your left leg. Stay on your perch for a moment. Think about when we stepped out wide before we did our side angle and our triangle. And take your legs wide out to the side. This gets tricky because I don't want that rounded spine. So pay close attention. Bend your knees so that you can sit on your sit bones and be tall like a mountain. Hands can be on blocks or on the ground, fingertips behind you. Start to straighten your legs. They don't have to get straight all the way at all. But see if you can find your mountain pose from the waist up. A stretch in the inner thighs and hamstrings. And just a moment, a brief moment here. To finish our practice, some of you will come off of your perch carefully, bending your knees, putting your feet on the ground, lie down in our final Shavasana meditation. Some of you might be more comfortable seated meditation, or just like that there's different options as to how you can close your practice. But what I really want is for us to swim deep into our present moment attention together. Once you've gotten into your spot, you're lying down or you're seated with your palms up or down, maybe close your eyes. At the very least, find a soft gaze. One full minute of silence in Shavasana or seated cross-legged. That was a full minute. Really great. If you're lying on your back, move slowly. If you're seated, just stay where you are, because those who are lying down are going to come and meet us here, seated in a cross-legged position or any comfortable seat. My lying down people, draw your knees gently into your chest. Roll to either side. Use your hands so that your head can be the last thing to come up and there's nothing dizzying as you sit. And then for all of us, we meet in a seat. Pay close attention to how you feel after a practice. A little different than before, don't you think? See if you can wear this attention out into your day. Fully inhabit every moment, every conversation. Feel all the feels. I'm Andrea. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. I look forward to us doing it again soon.